Hey guys, we're going to be doing a presentation on environmental racism. I'm Andy. The other people in this presentation are Olivia, Yomi, Melissa, and Joelle. So what is environmental racism and why is it important? Environmental racism is a term that is often used to refer to the way that minority group neighborhoods are burdened with an unbalanced amount, an unfair amount of pollution that lowered their quality of life. It is a national responsibility to make sure and to maintain that everybody has an equally clean environment that they reside in. So therefore, it is the national responsibility to address the way we dispose waste. In the past, historically, environmentalists have been ignoring the pollution that minority communities have to deal with. And they've also actually sometimes possibly contributed to that pollution as well. For example, back in 2002, there was an incident with the Native Americans with the uranium dumping. Unfortunately, the problem still exists today, and you will see that the three case studies that come after this, that the common belief that all people share the equal burden of waste is actually a myth.
Hi guys, this is Joelle. I'm going to be talking about the first case study. So for this one, it's about environmental racism and Latino farm work health in the San Joaquin Valley in California. So the author of this journal article is a daughter of a Mexican immigrant, and she was born and raised in the Central Valley in California. So she talks about how she's seen environmental racism throughout her life and the life of her parents. So first she introduces the issue of environmental racism and how it affects people of color in her community, specifically Blacks and Latinos, and how they are negatively impacted throughout in their health because of the exposure to chemicals such as lead, mercury, and other chemicals. And these increase the risk of diseases such as cancer, asthma, and heart disease. So throughout the journal article, she draws connections between the minority groups and the health effects that are in her community. So some of the background about the San Joaquin Valley is that it is known to be a gold mine for agricultural work. So it began about 30 years ago, and since then it has become known to be a huge area for farming. So this means that the use of pesticides and toxins have also increased. So this leads to health conditions. So people in the Central Valley are being affected because they are exposed to high levels of toxic airs and other pollutants. Specifically, some of the effects are birth defects. So mothers that are bearing children are noticing more birth defects because of these chemicals in the air. So some of the government action that the author talks about that needs to be done is regulation on pesticide use, creation of public spaces and parks, and designing and promoting healthy buildings around her community.
All right, this is Yomi, and I'm going to be talking about case study number 2. So for our second case study, we looked at the water crisis going on in Flint, Michigan, and our journal article author, Paul Mohai, is a professor at the University of Michigan and has published many books and articles surrounding the topic of environmental justice. We reviewed his article on the problem with Flint's water, which addresses how the crisis began and how it pertains to environmental justice. So this crisis raises the ethical issue of whether or not clean drinking water is a basic human right, and if race is a factor in the reason as to why the water in Flint has not been addressed by the state and federal officials. So to go into more detail, the crisis began when the water supply was changed from the Detroit water system to the Flint River in April of 2013. State officials aimed to save money with the switch, but didn't do an adequate job of ensuring the water was safe for consumption. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, or the MDEQ, went against federal policy in not addressing the corrosion control in the pipe system, and also the water was not properly filtered and treated, leading to visibly contaminated water. So in terms of environmental racism, Flint is predominantly black, and according to the US Census Bureau, the town is made up of 57% black residents. And this case raises the question of if the government is not paying attention to this problem because of the racial makeup of the town, and if the racial makeup was different, would the government's response also be different?
Hey guys, this is Olivia. The case that I chose to take a deeper look into through an article by author Teddy Dinelly Johnson deals with a small, predominantly African American populated town in Alabama called Uniontown. The residents of this town brought up a civil rights case to address a landfill near their town that they believe has been having many negative health effects on the residents. Aside from a permeating odor that constantly fills the air, residents have complained of health complications such as burning eyes, constant headaches, and mental illnesses. While these are all things that could easily be attributed to other causes, it is important to recognize the frequency at which they are occurring, as well as the population being affected. While this is one of the most prevalent examples of environmental racism, it has been pushed under the rug to avoid any mass attention from the nation, and to ultimately avoid discussing the topic of racism being demonstrated in unorthodox ways. This example solidifies the argument that racism is still present today, even in times when most people are unaware of it. For many, it's hard to believe that this situation could simply be one of circumstance, rather than disregard for the well-being of a minority population. Many believe that if the majority of the population of the town weren't Black, that this wouldn't be an issue. One resident, Ben Eaton, remarked on the situation, saying, "The protection we've got from the government is little to none. I can't help but feel as though it's because the population is mainly Black and poor. This was forced on us. If this was a white, wealthy community, this would never have happened." This is a blatant example of disregard for the health of a population because they are a minority. In Uniontown, the population is 90% Black, with half of the residents of the town falling below the poverty line. The significance of this situation is, while the EPA recognizes that, according to environmental journalist Oliver Millman, people living within a mile of unlined coal ash storage ponds have a 1 in 50 risk of developing cancer, they seem to disregard the significance of the situation, being that they also concluded that there was insufficient evidence that authorities in Alabama had breached the Civil Rights Act by allowing an enormous landfill site containing 4 million tons of coal ash to operate near residents in Uniontown.
Record.
Hey guys, it's Melissa. So to conclude our presentation, I have some possible solutions for environmental racism. One of them is more involvement from the EPA for poor neighborhoods. Another one is to set new laws or regulations in place. And the third one is relocation of dumping. So for more involvement from the EPA or poor neighborhoods, one thing that we can do is fundraise or invest more. So fundraising and investment will help poor communities pay for water purification, water treatment plants, proper disposal facilities, community resources, and many more things. Another way to get more involved is educating people, which will help bring awareness to the issue and the importance of how it's affecting individuals' lives. Putting new laws and regulations in place, one regulation is how much pollution can be within the proximity of residential areas to ensure that people are living a healthy lifestyle. And for relocating the dumping and avoiding residential areas is key to helping individuals' quality of life by allowing them to live a healthy and safe lifestyle. Dumping away from communities will help these individuals stay safe from diseases that other people who are more wealthy don't have to worry about, but poor communities do because they do not have any control over it. So now we have possible or discussion questions to look at. One of them is, how do these current issues with environmental racism prove that we are not in a post-racial society? Another question is, how does environmental racism affect the opportunity structure of the affected individuals? And the last question is, how does this relate to residential segregation?
Hey guys, thank you for listening to our presentation. Thank you for listening. Here are your sources.